Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Um, I'm in the studio here today with Sukhwinder Kaur. And why don't you introduce yourself while you're here?
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Hope the whole Sangat is doing well and staying out of cold. As you know, we have worked on few presentations just to make you aware on a one of the very critical issue that our community has faced in these countries. And if you remember, the presentation I did was with Arpinder Kaur, empowering families and youth, and we touched on the issue of organized child rape crimes and to make our families and youth aware. And today, and in fact, in those series, we ended up with the discussion on Sikh character. And here we get together again. In fact, I have the privilege of sitting across Aman Kaur, my own daughter. She has a journalism degree from SMU, and it'll be great to incorporate some views of youth on this issue, and in fact, going back to the Sikh character, because Sikh youth is the main attention and the focus of our talk, and for the generations to come true, for the coming generations, and for the for the Sikh character to come to true. So we are going to be talking about Raj Karega Khalsa, the Sikh character. Going back to the series we have addressed already and taking them forward.
Okay, great. So I guess the first topic today is going to be empowering family and youth. So can you give us sort of a summary of what that means to you and what that means for our community?
Empowering families and youth. Last time, the last presentations, it was about a particular issue, but at this time, as we came to the conclusion that no matter what the issue is, it's going to be it's going to come down to the development of Sikh character at personal level, at community level, at collective level. And it has to start with the youth, with the families, with the organizations, and everybody. Like everybody matters in it. I say organizations, all the organizations that identify themselves as Sikh organizations, no matter what their main purpose is and what their main forte is. And
So what does it mean to you to have Sikh character?
well,
What does
Sikh
that
character is, Sikh character. I'm gonna focus on, how we work on developing our Sikh roots and heritage in these countries. We come to the Gurdwara, we focus on the language, but we focus on the religious aspect of Sikhism. We learn about 10 gurus and plus and plus and plus more. And Sikh character is about, yes, about language, yes, about the religion, yes, about the history and all the knowledge of Sikh gurus and all the Sakhis that we learn, but also learning about the ideals that they lived up to and they
Right.
sacrificed their lives to,
Right.
and incorporate those ideals, take the example from their lives and incorporate into our daily life. And it's not something for whenever we go for a battle, but every single day and every single day.
Right. So for
Yes.
you, what are these ideals? Like, what can a community incorporate and integrate into their everyday life? Like, what's an idea? What's the ideals for you?
The ideals, the Sikh character ideals, we have to, what comes to my mind is 18th century. In fact, an assistant professor, what was her name?
Karamjeet.
Karamjeet Kaur
Right.
Malhotra, and she's an assistant professor at Punjabi University, Patiala, and she talks about transformation of Sikh character, transformation of Sikhs
Hmm.
in the 18th century.
So what
So,
was that like?
yes, so I would like to touch on that to understand more of what Sikh character we are talking about. So, what was the transformation in the 18th century that she was talking
Hmm.
about? And so she states in her one of the what was the name of the Sikh center, the 18th century in Sikh history. In one of her books, the 18th century in Sikh history, she talks about Guru Gobind Singh, who came with Khande Ki Paho, and he initiated this Sikh character, and it was about conscience, social order,
Right.
and it was not just about coming up with another religion or religious order, even though religion is nothing more but a set of human ideals that it aspires us to incorporate, to learn. And so she talks about those social order, that how he taught us, how his idea was to have the social consciousness of
Mm.
the ultimate social order, where everything, your personal life, community life, to
Right.
the communitarian life, and at the collective level, at the national level, and coming back to culinary, like
Right.
how to, in terms of kitchen and the
Which
food
is, it's
preparation.
interesting because Guru
Yes.
Gobind Singh Ji was way ahead of his time. Nowadays we look at our spirituality and we say, okay, let's integrate it in every aspect of our lives, in our food, in our community. But he was doing that way, way before.
Before, like,
Yeah.
he created that
Yeah.
Raj Karega Khalsa.
Yeah.
What does it mean? So, conscious
But it's
creation of
like,
social order,
right.
all aspects of life,
Okay.
culinary,
Yeah.
domestic intoxicants,
Hmm.
and that involved tobacco and
Alcohol.
alcohol,
Yeah.
even sensuality, illicit relations, and honest living was incorporated in that, and good conduct, soft speech, and yeah, and help of others,
Right.
paropkar.
Mm.
Very, very. And paropkar, it's not always when there is a difficulty, like a national difficulty or a natural difficulty, but on regular basis, help of the needy,
Hmm.
help of the poor, and help of the suffering.
Right.
Which, again, going back to empowering families and youth, that, why it is important, why it was important for each and every youth to know, the one that was going through trouble, the family to know, and the communities to know, and the organizations to know, and the gurdwaras to know, that that paropkar, help of the suffering and the poor, and our youth and those families were in much suffering.
Mm.
And I always appreciate going back to Paisa Mohan Singh, who took the charge, who um, who took charge of helping those youth, and
Who,
and
and for the viewers who don't know, that's the Sikh Awareness Association, correct, right? Sikh
Sikh
Awareness
awareness, yes,
Society
society, yes,
in the UK, who is
yes,
doing a lot of work on
yes. So that's
this
just
issue.
one organization. So, but this assistant professor is talking about 18th century, that we are not talking about just few organizations. It started with our Guru Gobind Singh Ji's, ideal of Raj Karega Khalsa, and then the Sikhs after him, they followed these ideals. In the 18th century, it was the transformation of the Sikh spirit in their conquests,
Right.
in their political ideals, and the ethics of Khalsas were at their best. And And even in their wars, they followed these ideals to not to attack a fugitive, not to enslave a woman,
Right.
or do anything to harm any woman and children.
Right.
So going back to the 18th century transformation, the ideals that it was, what I am coming back to is that Raj Karega Khalsa was not just a new religion. It was a religion, but religion in not terms of something to adopt as an identity, but a set of human ideals, that our identity is a privilege. Like today, if we talk about identity, our identity, the identity was created to identify a set of ideals that a human should have,
Right.
and that the humans that who identify themselves with this identity must aspire towards those ideals.
So it's like
And
it's no longer a division between your spirituality and your daily living.
daily living.
It's like this very integrated approach to that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And are we talking about Raj Karega Khalsa, the human ideals to be something about nobility to reach for, to something noble? Yes, it is noble, but no, at the same time, it's a necessity of a human being. It's a survival, it's the excellence, it's the development, it's economic, it's it's about every part of life. Think about these Sikh youth, even today, like I have myself, like the personal situation I have suffered, I have handled however I, could. And I am even today stunned and shocked at the situation of this particular issue, that the community, the Sikh community, the youth who should be leading the way, given what Raj Karega Khalsa, the ideals, the human ideals that Guru Gobind Singh gave us through the example, not just the teaching, and the Sikhs followed thereafter, that we should be leading the way of courage and bravery. But today we have become the most, uh, the easiest target for these predators to be preyed upon. And
I get
this
that.
is where I wanted to touch back on those series, that we must, as a community, as a family, as personal, as organizations, as gurdwaras, should first learn the holistic, the complete Raj Karega Khalsa, what it means, identity plus human ideals, identity a privilege to this identity is an identification of those ideals, and whosoever attains this, decided to take this identity, to aspire to these ideals and help others.
Right, so
Yes.
let me get to this real fast. So this sick character and incorporating these ideals in your everyday living or just in your community. So we do have examples like we mentioned, what was from the Sick Awareness Society. Can you say
By
that?
someone saying?
Yeah. So can you give sort of like a summary of what he's doing and how he's incorporating these ideals of sick character and what that means for our communities, that we do have some leaders to kind of look up to as examples of this.
Well, the thing is, for me, first of all, I just mentioned about Sikh youth, that we should be leading the way,
Hmm.
instead of of courage and bravery, instead of being known as the easiest community to go to for that particular issue.
Right.
And but I do recognize and do want to recognize that some youth did reach out to uh, Paisa Mohan Singh.
Yeah, yeah.
And Paisa Mohan Singh's Sikh character is the exemplary, that he did not say that this is not my purpose. I
Hmm.
only belong to the Gurdwara and its preaching of Sikh religion, or
Right.
my job in the Gurdwara is only limited to this.
Right.
He was the perfect role model of Raj Karega Khalsa, the Sikh ideals, that he was ready to help the suffering youth,
Right. And
the
it's
suffering youth who were misunderstood by their friends, by by their own family,
mm,
and let alone the communities.
right.
So that's what we mean. The one of the ideals that that assistant professor talks about, in the religious, like khande ki poho,
Mm,
the paropkar, like not just the paropkar, but the paropkar, suffering. So he welcomed suffering youth, and in
gave
terms
them
of,
a place in the
yes,
community,
Sikh
right? Yeah,
ideals, and listen to them and help them.
right. And
Yes.
that's the thing. It's just you don't have to go anywhere to address issues. You can see right in your community that there are things going on that are not being addressed. For example, these kids in the UK who were targets of sex trafficking rings. So you just keep an eye and you address the issues that are right there in front of you, and you give that space to people who are not getting that space in their community, so that you're not pushing away any members of your society. You're welcoming everyone in.
And
And
we are talking about just that one issue, but that issue is an example of how things can go out of hand if not addressed properly. If Gurdwara starts saying that this is not our issue, organizations start saying this is not our issue, or community starts saying this is not our issue, that family's issue, or that youth's issue, or that person's issue, that it can go out of hand, and the same thing can happen to many other issues that we intend to address, and that our communities face in these countries when we come to these countries. And yes, and
it's all about, like, taking care of each other. We're here as a
yes.
as a community, and just addressing the issues that are here right in front of us is
Yes.
the best
And
way
I
we
think
can
we all
start.
intend to, and we all intend to in our own way.
Totally.
But it is, what we need is revival of Sikh character. The Raj Karega Khalsa, what does it mean? Should we just away from countries, be insecure and be fearful about our roots and about our heritage, that we need to preserve our identity, which is great? Or should we strive towards high ideals? That what does this identity means? What did Guru Gobind Singh Ji, what did he mean by Khande Ki Paha? What did he mean by human ideals? And what did he mean by Raj Karega Khalsa? What did he mean by Khalsa? And that in that identity, and the ideals, they go, they work with each other. If you have the identity, it is your duty to aspire toward those human ideals. And if you don't have the identity, and then you are brought up in a Sikh environment or otherwise, then you should aspire towards those human ideals, and then have the privilege of that. Can you have that identity? Can you call yourself a Khalsa? Can you call yourself a Sikh? And that is very important, to empower our youth, empower ourselves, on a personal level, and on the family level, at the community level, at national level, state level, for any issue and every issue. And as I was just giving an example of 18th century, that was the time of the transformation of Khalsa and the Sikh character, Sikh spirit. And guess what it did those times? Um, Not just the Sikh ideals were incorporated in conquests or political ideals by our Sikh rulers, but also in the Sikh art, in the Sikh architecture. At that point, that was the one point where the first time, our Sikh art adopted its own identity.
Right, and left us such
Sikh,
a beautiful legacy to kind of
yes,
feel inspired by, and yeah.
yes. And the Sikh architecture developed its own identity. How many we know? Like, so much art is there in the Golden Temple,
Oh, yeah.
even though it was funded by funded by rulers of those times like Maharaja Ranjit Singh. But the point we are talking about is when we handle the Raj Karega Khalsa, the identity, and the human ideals all together as balanced,
Right.
depending on each other, and our duty to recognize that,
Right.
and duty for ourselves and to communities and towards youth and all the issues that we face, it can be a revival of whole Sikh spirit.
Yeah, it's like this collective unity that comes together, and out of it comes all of these beautiful things like the Golden Temple,
The
Punjabi
art and the
Sikh art.
architecture.
Yeah,
And can
yeah.
you imagine in today, like in these countries, not just the language, not just the knowledge of 10 gurus or their lives,
Right.
our kids be made aware of Sikh art, the Sikh, maybe, the museums that only focus on Sikh art and the architecture,
Right. And we have a lot
how.
of creative youth in our community who are really kind of into this stuff, and just to show them that this exists, that hey, look, there's a whole wealth of history for you to be proud of and to look at and to be inspired by. I mean, that's great.
And how rich that would be.
Yeah.
How rich that would be. And
I mean, the French do it right. They preserve all of their art, their history,
the
and so
history,
the
yes.
people have something to look for, to
Yeah.
be inspired by, to create out of, right?
Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
difference between history and modernity.
Right.
So history is incorporated into modern.
And this all comes back to the spirituality, which is this strength of spirit, to have this balance, this harmony, and to create out of that as a collective group.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it just brings back to us, that how should we lay the foundation of Sikh spirit in these countries and not just get caught in the fear and security of the only identity, which is great. Identity itself is great, but what does it entail? What do we mean by Khalsa? What do we mean by Raj Karega
And
Khalsa?
perhaps these things even transcend the notion of identity, because they're so much bigger than that. Because when you support people in your own community, you can go out and support other people, because it only starts where you're at first, right?
Yes.
The closest to you, if you can't support them, how can you support other people or the people around in your larger community?
Larger community. And
Yeah.
we know our gurus, like where does Khande Ki Pahal came from? Where did Khalsa come from? From helping the needy. And at that time, those were Kashmiri Pandits and the
Right.
others. And, complete violation of human rights, conversions, torture. And without that, the holistic, the complete ideals of identity, the Sikh identity that brings us and it makes us aspire towards, we will be at the foundation that we lay for the Sikh spirit and for the Sikhs in these countries will be very weak and very sort of out of insecurity rather than brevity and courage and the richness that it presents.
Right. A foundation of strength for people to bloom.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we should know that it wasn't just gurus who could incorporate that. And the 18th century, in going back to that Karamjit Kaur Malhotra's 18th century that book, that it can be done in any era, and maybe it's not too late.
Oh, I think it's happening right now.
And,
I think people are interested in this. So
yes.
there's a reason we're talking about it, is because there's that feeling in the air that, hey, look, we want to join together again and create some harmony, create some balance and unity in our community.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we have some issues in mind, not just the organized child rape crimes, many other issues that are youth and the families and the elderly. So many issues that we face in these countries that we need to address, and then also how to revive this Sikh spirit in the completeness of it. And, we would love your feedback, and we want the community and the youth and everybody to be involved in the dialogue. So we will be hopefully we'll be having a lot of discussions and also some actions to follow through, and making and coming down to what is it all about.
Right.
What was that our gurus laid the foundation, the Khalsa, for? It comes down to um, human happiness, human, I don't want to say human pride, but courage and bravery, harmony, justice, economic development in all parts of life,
Right.
everything.
And oh, do you have more to say? I was gonna
Yeah,
do a
no.
closing comment.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So if you guys have any issues or anything you'd like to talk about, anything you see in this community or even in your family that maybe concerns you or that you're happy about and you think, hey, I want to share this, leave a comment below. That'd be great. And then maybe we can get people on here and discuss some of those issues and keep this thing going.
Waheguru Ji
So,
Ka Khalsa,
Waheguru Ji
Waheguru Ji
Ki
Ki
Fateh,
Fateh.
and thank you for joining us today, Sukhwinder Kaur. It
No,
was great
thank
to
you for
talk.
you. In
Yeah.
fact, I was going to ask you about many suggestions that your feedback on what we should address, and we'll handle that next time.
Okay, yeah.
Yes,
Maybe
Waheguru
stay
Ji Ka
tuned. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa.
Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.